On February 1st, 1959, 9 experienced hikers disappeared into the frozen wilderness of the northern Ural Mountains. They were young, experienced, and prepared for the extreme cold. They had set out on a difficult winter expedition through one of the most remote regions of the Soviet Union. This photograph would become one of the last known images of the group before their final night. But sometime during that night, something went terribly wrong. Their tent had been cut open from the inside, and outside, footprints led away from the tent toward the darkness. But they had left behind something they would normally never abandon: their shoes. The strange part wasn't what they took with them. It was what they left behind. Their clothing was still there. Their food was still there. Their equipment was still there. These weren't inexperienced travelers. They were experienced mountaineers who understood the dangers of winter. They had faced difficult conditions before, but this expedition would be their last. That evening, the weather was deteriorating. Temperatures were falling, and powerful winds swept across the mountain. By nightfall, all 9 were inside their tent. And then, something made them leave. We may never know exactly what they saw, but within minutes, all 9 were outside. They didn't leave through the entrance. They cut their way out. Their decision had to be made quickly. In temperatures far below freezing, they walked away from their only shelter. By morning, the mountain was silent. None of the 9 returned to the tent. And as the days passed, concern turned into a search. Search teams were eventually sent into the mountains. They had no idea what they were about to find. On February 26th, the searchers found the abandoned tent. It was still standing on the mountainside, but the hikers were gone. Inside were backpacks, boots, food, cameras, diaries, and other personal belongings. Almost everything they needed to survive the mountain was still there. Then the searchers found the footprints. They led downhill from the tent toward the forest. The trail disappeared near the edge of the trees, and somewhere beyond that point, the first bodies were found. On February 26th, searchers found Yuri Doroshenko and Yuri Krivonishenko near a cedar tree. They had built a small fire, but the fire had not saved them. The flames were long gone. Only the remains of the fire were left in the snow, and the mountain was still hiding the others. 3 more bodies were found along the route between the forest and the tent. Their positions suggested that at least some had been trying to return. 3 of the hikers had died from exposure. 1 had also suffered a skull injury. But the search was not over. Nearly 2 months later, 4 more bodies were discovered in a ravine beneath several meters of snow, and their injuries were far more severe. The autopsies added another layer to the mystery. Several of the victims had suffered serious internal injuries, yet the exact chain of events that caused them remained uncertain. And then came another unusual detail. Some clothing was later tested for radioactive contamination. The finding became one of the most debated details of the case. Over the decades, countless theories were proposed. An avalanche, extreme winds, panic, military activity, and even explanations far stranger than that. In recent years, researchers have proposed a more ordinary explanation. A wind-loaded slab of snow may have formed above the tent. If it shifted suddenly, the hikers could have believed they were in immediate danger and fled into the darkness. But even a plausible explanation doesn't answer every question. Why did all 9 leave so suddenly? Why did they move downhill without adequate clothing? And what happened during those final minutes inside the tent? More than 6 decades later, the mountain is still silent. 9 people went into the snow. None came back. And perhaps the most unsettling part is that no one survived to tell us exactly what happened inside that tent.